Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Even after finishing the breadcrumbs, the pigeons were still not satisfied. Some bold pigeons looked at the bread in Su Xing's hand on the chair, hopped over to Su Xing's side, and started eating directly from his hand. Su Xing on the chair closed his eyes, as if he hadn't noticed anything happening around him. Tilting its head, the pigeon glanced at Su Xing twice, then began pecking at the bread. Just as it was about to touch the bread, it suddenly felt itself move a little further away from it. The pigeon flapped its wings in a panic, looking at Su Xing. Seeing that Su Xing still had his eyes closed, the pigeon shook its head and continued to peck at the bread. But just as it was about to touch the bread again, it inexplicably moved back a bit once more. The pigeon tilted its head, unable to understand what was happening, and seeing that nothing had changed, it continued to try. Watching the pigeon persistently try to eat the bread, Su Xing quietly opened his eyes. Every time the pigeon was about to touch the bread, Su Xing controlled Platinum Star to quickly pull on the pigeon's feathers, yanking it back. Hee hee. This is the reality you will never reach. After the playful interaction, Su Xing gained an even more personal understanding of Platinum Star's terrifying power. As an experimental subject, Su Xing had originally intended to find a fly to test the water. A fly's organs are very peculiar. All its organs function independently. Its eyes see what they see, its head is responsible for its head, and it doesn't care even if it's rubbed off. The organs controlling evasion are even more independent, which is why it can fly away immediately when about to be attacked. But unfortunately, there were no flies near the park, and a pigeon just happened to jump onto Su Xing's chair. So seeing the pigeon so close, Su Xing decided to use it for his experiment. With terrifyingly high precision and speed, the pigeon would only intuitively feel that something was wrong, but it wouldn't be able to know what was causing it. Su Xing was very satisfied, seeing that the pigeon didn't feel anything amiss. Don't look at it as having no direct destructive power right now. But how does that saying go? If it can pluck your button in an instant, it can pierce your throat in an instant. Being in a bustling city, Su Xing naturally couldn't directly experiment with his powers. But through this method, Su Xing could also intuitively experience the power of Platinum Star. Stand. As one's spirit strengthens, the power a stand can exert also grows stronger. Having been enhanced by the Super Soldier Serum, Su Xing's mental abilities also received a corresponding boost. Although he hadn't reached an invincible level, if he were to fight Hulk now, Su Xing was confident he wouldn't be forced to awkwardly dodge as he was last time. Su Xing wasn't the only one on the lakeside bench. Several people were also sitting on the adjacent benches, separated by only a few meters, and glances occasionally fell upon this spot. But none of them noticed Platinum Star, which stood like a statue behind Su Xing. Su Xing pondered silently. Logically speaking, only stand users can see stands. But in such a bizarre world, anything is possible, not to mention anything else. In the current world, Ancient One, who can slap a person's soul out, would definitely be able to see it. As for whether anyone else could see it, Su Xing was still unsure. Covering the bread with his hands, he used Platinum Star's hand to instantly crumble the bread into crumbs. With a casual toss, he scattered all of it to the pigeons, under the surprised gazes of onlookers. Su Xing also stood up and headed home. In any case, with Platinum Star, his abilities had finally greatly improved. In a world filled with monsters and demons, he now had a bit more leverage for self-preservation. Walking down the road, Su Xing's wrist began to vibrate again. Seeing the large words, Nick Fury, on the screen, Su Xing was a little speechless. Why did Nick Fury always call it quitting time? During work hours, there wasn't a single sound from him. Looking for trouble, are you? Don't you know I'm off work? Su Xing angrily tapped his wrist. Director, Agent Su Xing greets you. At S.H.I.E.L.D, Director Fury raised an eyebrow, listening to Su Xing's upbeat tone. Normally, when Su Xing answered the phone at quitting time, one could feel a sense of exhaustion in his voice. What's wrong today? Could he be starting to plan his vacation already? Without dwelling too much on Su Xing's tone, Director Fury stated his purpose. Su, have you seen the news about Tony Stark recently? The wealthy man you saved last time. Su Xing was a little surprised. In the original plot, Tony was indeed invited by S.H.I.E.L.D. after revealing his identity. But wasn't Black Widow sent in the original plot? Why tell me? Not understanding the situation, Su Xing went along with it. Of course I know. Iron Man, right? Director Fury's voice came through the wrist device. An unexpected gain, right? Do you remember me talking to you about forming a Guardian organization? Su Xing still didn't know what Director Fury wanted, so he shrugged and continued. I remember forming a group of capable special individuals to provide defense during major events. He paused, then Su Xing knowingly asked, What? Do you want to recruit him? As Su Xing expected, Director Fury said, That's right. Tony's information, after our investigation, is highly trustworthy. Su Xing sipped his coffee, not feeling the slightest surprise, and just listened as Director Fury continued. Without further ado, I plan to have you recruit him. Su Xing almost spat out the coffee in his mouth. Me? How can I go? After the incident where I tricked Tony, you want me to recruit him? If Tony doesn't directly hit me with a repulsor blast, that'll be good enough. Director Fury's voice continued to come from the other end of the phone. Reply, Su. Su Xing quickly swallowed the coffee in his mouth. Why me? At S.H.I.E.L.D., Director Fury was a little excited. His plan had been struggling to find suitable candidates. Tony Stark just filled that void. Putting everything else aside, although he had suspended the arms business, Stark Industries was still a giant in the United States, with countless funds. If Tony was brought in, there would be no need to even issue funds. More importantly, all of Tony's information was out in the open, so there was no need to worry about him getting out of control. The only problem was that he was difficult to recruit. Just recently, Su Xing had saved Tony. After S.H.I.E.L.D's rescue, Tony should love S.H.I.E.L.D. by now. Meanwhile, Su Xing was extremely nervous. Given his actions in rescuing Tony, Tony should hate S.H.I.E.L.D. by now, let alone the two sides sitting down for a good talk. Even though he hadn't spoken with Tony yet, Su Xing felt that Tony's impression of S.H.I.E.L.D. was probably not very good. As evening approached, the streets were much emptier than during the day. A bicycle leisurely passed Su Xing. The entire community was relaxed and quiet. However, Su Xing, standing on the roadside making a call and listening to Director Fury describe his grand plans, was completely out of sync with the atmosphere. Wait, Director. I'm still on a mission. I don't have time. Director Fury's voice came through the earpiece Su Xing was wearing. No rush. We need to wait some time to observe whether Tony Stark is a qualified hero or not. Once you complete this mission, I'll give you the detailed plan. Any other questions, Su? Su Xing, standing by the street, really wanted to refuse the task, but too many refusals would surely arouse Director Fury's suspicion. He had originally patted his chest and told Director Fury that the mission was successfully completed and Tony Stark was very satisfied with his rescue. With no other choice, Su Xing had to accept the task. Yes, Director. The call ended, and Su Xing was filled with bitterness. I've already transmigrated. Why is my fate as an employee still so miserable? My boss calls me all the time after work, doing things that aren't human. Don't they know that after-work hours are for enjoying life? With matters weighing on his mind, Su Xing found the coffee in his mouth much more bitter. He threw the coffee cup into a roadside trash can, hands in his coat pockets, feeling heavy-hearted. Annoying. Now, he had to worry about recruiting Tony for a few minutes. Su Xing looked sorrowful. These were a few minutes after work. Is there anyone in this world more miserable than him? Night fell. In the military base's information department, General Ross, looking exhausted, stood in the information department, staring at the screen without blinking. The overtime information department personnel were suffering internally. Ever since General Ross returned from Brazil, he had been working at high intensity, staying in the information department 24 hours a day, except for necessary rest and work. Work was already hard enough, and the boss stood behind you all day, so you couldn't even slack off. The information department personnel were on the verge of a slight breakdown. Shit. If only their work could also end at quitting time. But that kind of thing was impossible to even imagine. Normally it was fine, but once a mission was received, quitting time was out of the question. You couldn't just suddenly clock out in the middle of a fight, could you? How could that be possible? General Ross, standing by, was focused and extremely anxious. Several days had passed since Hulk escaped, but there was still no information about Hulk. Although Su Xing could provide intelligence, General Ross could only wait anxiously until there was some movement. In the entire information department, apart from occasional handover sounds, there was only the clicking of keys. In the silence, General Ross's confidant broke the quiet. "General, these are Bronski's performances after taking the serum." Looking at the experimental data handed to him by his confidant, General Ross's eyes showed dissatisfaction, and he handed the data back to his confidant. "It's not enough. I don't think I need to tell you Hulk's data, do I? Work towards that goal." The confidant took the data, listening to General Ross's instructions, looking somewhat worried. "But General, the serum is not yet perfected. If we continue, it will exceed Bronski's tolerance and cause Bronski to lose control." General Ross turned his head, a few sleepless days making General Ross's temper even more volatile. "Lose control? Tell me, soldier, with this data, how can Bronski contend with Hulk? I don't want Bronski to embarrass me again like last time. When we find Hulk again, I need everything to be foolproof. Do you understand, soldier?" The confidant snapped his heels together and saluted. "Yes, General." After saying that, General Ross turned his head away. "Anything else?" "Yes, General. The owner of the factory that Hulk smashed has protested, and after much discussion, they need an explanation from us." "Explanation? Rescuing him from Hulk's threat is a blessing for him. You handle it." "Yes." Far away in Brazil, the factory owner, who ultimately received no money, looked at his ruined factory and gave a thumbs up. "You are amazing. You are noble." Meanwhile, at Betty's house, Banner was sitting with Betty's current boyfriend in the living room, talking through the night. "So, you left Betty for some unspeakable reason?" Banner nodded, unconsciously tightening his grip on the cup. "Yes. Please believe me, I am in constant pain right now." The man's face was slightly furrowed, as if empathizing with Banner's pain. "I believe you. Your days on the run must have been difficult. Don't worry, I won't hinder you from finding redemption." Hearing the man's reply, Banner relaxed his grip on the cup. "It's great that you can understand." The man smiled. "As a doctor, I always tend to empathize with people, otherwise I wouldn't be able to treat so many patients." Seeing the man so understanding, Banner also relaxed and started joking. "So, doctor, what is your advice for me?" The man pretended to think and followed Banner's words. "Generally, for patients like you, my advice is to get a good night's sleep, and by tomorrow, everything will be better." After exchanging thanks with Banner, the man went upstairs. On the stairs, the man's tolerant smile disappeared, replaced by a cold expression. After composing the message, the man sent it to the military. He had pursued Betty for many years, and now he had finally succeeded. He absolutely could not watch Betty return to another man's arms. When he saw Banner, the man had already prepared to report Banner. Remembering Betty's intimate gaze towards Banner, the man felt a pang of jealousy. Tonight, he would watch the military personally arrest Banner. Meanwhile, at Su Xing's house, Su Xing's wristband, placed on the table, vibrated a few times. Su Xing, who no longer needed sleep after taking the super serum, instantly opened his eyes and picked up his wristband to check. One message has been intercepted. Putting down his wristband, Su Xing felt a bit emotional. So impatient already? If the military received the message now and went to Betty's house to arrest Hulk, his plan would fail. Precisely because of this, even if Betty's boyfriend wanted to send a message, he couldn't. Seeing that there was nothing major, Su Xing lay back down on his soft bed. Sigh. Even after work, he still had to deal with interpersonal relationships. What a life. Late at night, Banner, who had talked with the man, lay on the sofa in the living room on the first floor. A few hours later, it was already dawn. Banner immediately turned off the ringing alarm clock. After getting up and checking the time, Banner began to prepare. Pulling out his laptop from his backpack, Banner reconnected with Mr. Blue. After confirming that he had obtained the research data, the other party sent a confirmation message. "Come to this location to find me." Looking at the location information sent by the other party, Banner covered his forehead and began to think. The good news was that the other party could help him get rid of Hulk. But the bad news was that the location sent by Mr. Blue was in his home country. And now, Banner would rather the other party's address not be in his home country. In Brazil, General Ross could find him, let alone in his own country. The only reason he could stay in the US until now was all thanks to Su Xing. Thinking of Su Xing, Banner felt a headache. In such a critical situation, Banner couldn't possibly fall asleep again. Closing the laptop, putting away the USB drive, and putting on his backpack, Banner sat in the living room and began to wait. Listening to the ticking clock, the sky began to brighten. At first, Banner was full of confidence in Su Xing's arrival. Since he could get off work, then he would definitely go to work again. And the time would probably be very early. Otherwise, how would he handle things? Sitting by the door waiting, Banner felt that his guess was very reasonable. Just based on Su Xing's ability to hide him until now, Banner admitted that Su Xing still had some skill. Since he had this ability, even if Su Xing himself was unreliable, his organization couldn't be unreliable too, right? Being able to cultivate such a talent, Banner was very confident in his deduction. He couldn't really be like a government official, working 9 to 5, could he? With such expectations, Banner hugged his backpack and sat in the living room, beginning to wait. A few hours passed. Banner still patiently sat in the living room, waiting. Touching his backpack, Banner's heart was calm. It's normal for him not to come at this time. A few more hours passed. Banner's mood underwent a subtle change. Glancing at the door, Banner was a little doubtful. Why isn't he here yet? A few more hours passed. Banner, with bloodshot eyes, was still sitting in the living room waiting, his expression already blank. Looking at the motionless door, Banner, who had long lost confidence, began to doubt life. Why isn't he here yet? Having lost patience, Banner's anxiety resurfaced. Although Banner had systematically learned a series of methods to adjust his mindset, such as meditation, during his escape from the world, he still felt anxious and other emotions. After waiting for a long time without hearing a single sound, Banner's perception of Su Xing's unreliability was refreshed once again. As time passed, the sun had already risen from the horizon. Sunlight streamed into Banner's eyes. Banner, who had hardly slept all night, shed tears as his eyes were stimulated by the sunlight. Actually, Banner had thought about slipping away himself. But according to the location information provided by Mr. Blue, it was very far from Betty's home. It would be almost impossible for Banner to get there by himself without exposing his information. With his retreat blocked, Banner could only sit in the living room, waiting for Su Xing's arrival. Closing his eyes, he felt the soreness in them. Banner reached out and wiped away the tears that flowed. If Su Xing's organization could be complained about, he would definitely press the report button until it broke. Even government officials can't be as precise with their timing as you, can they? Meanwhile, upstairs, Betty's boyfriend also rubbed his sore eyes. That's not right. Why hasn't the military arrived yet? Their efficiency can't be that bad, can it? The man thought angrily. If the military could also be complained about, he would definitely blow up the complaint line. What kind of efficiency is this? And they can still maintain national security like this? Time flew by. On the soft bed, Su Xing opened his eyes. Releasing his power, Su Xing looked at the platinum star that appeared beside him, like an ancient Greek sculpture, and nodded with full security. Very good. It seems that yesterday's beauty was not fake. Slowly brushing his teeth and washing up, Su Xing tidied himself up very well. Looking in the mirror, Su Xing hummed a tune and arrived at Betty's apartment. Opening his wrist and seeing a series of "one message has been intercepted," Su Xing raised an eyebrow. Hey, this guy is quite persistent. Taking a few steps to the door, Su Xing politely knocked. Almost at the moment Su Xing knocked, the apartment door was immediately opened. Fighting off drowsiness, Banner looked at Su Xing. There were many things he wanted to scold him about, but for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Thousands of words finally condensed into one sentence. You're at work? Su Xing nodded. Yes, Banner, I'm at work. Tilting his head, glancing past Banner at Betty's boyfriend behind Banner, who was serving as his tool, Su Xing's face showed a mischievous smile. I think maintaining a good routine is a very good habit. What do you two think? Using all his means to suppress the anger in his heart, Banner said to Su Xing. The situation has changed. We need to go there. Su Xing, who had seen the original plot, naturally knew what Banner meant. Holding his coffee, Su Xing tilted his head towards the outside. Let's go. Betty's voice came from behind. Are you leaving? Banner turned his head and looked at Betty, his gaze changing from the disdain and anger he showed towards Su Xing to tenderness. Don't worry, there won't be any danger on this trip. Su Xing, who was standing at the door and had already informed the military, blinked when he heard this. He didn't think so. In Su Xing's plan, if everything went smoothly, he would eventually pretend to be on the military side and fight against Hulk. With Platinum Star, he would definitely not be in danger, but Banner might not be. Banner and Betty performed a tearful scene at the door. It ended with Betty being very reluctant, but only able to watch Banner leave. The farewell ended. Banner looked at Su Xing again. His gaze changed from tenderness back to disdain and anger. Su Xing shrugged. Why does his gaze become so listless when he looks at me? Putting an arm around the reluctant Banner, Su Xing said, Hey, bro, we've been through so much together. Although it's a mission, we at least have some feelings for each other. Banner glanced at the arm holding him and looked at Su Xing again. Feelings? If it weren't for his constant desire to get rid of Hulk and not be controlled by Hulk. Otherwise, he would want to transform into Hulk right now and punch this scoundrel Su Xing into the ground. At this time, in the military base, General Ross, who received Su Xing's message, was ecstatic and immediately arranged for personnel deployment. Move all visual angles to this location. Show me every road that leads to this location. Listening to General Ross's arrangements, the information department staff regained their spirits. Is it finally going to end? Call Bronsky out. It's time for him to act. Yes, General. In the training room of the military base, broken iron racks were scattered everywhere. Circumnavigating the debris on the ground, the confidant came to the bathroom door. Bronsky prepared to move out. In the bathroom, Bronsky, bare-chested, stared at himself in the mirror, his entire spine unnaturally bulging, like the back of Godzilla. Hearing the voice from the doorway, Bronsky's face revealed a cruel and sinister smile. Yes, officer. Meanwhile, Su Xing was driving an old-looking car at high speed on the highway. Under Su Xing's superb driving skills, the entire car continuously accelerated, overtaking one expensive supercar after another. After he once again completed a Z-drift between two cars, Banner, who felt like he was almost thrown out, felt a little nauseous. Are we just going to Mr. Blue's place like this? Ignoring the curses coming from behind, Su Xing turned to look at Banner in the passenger seat. What I said yesterday wasn't just a joke, Banner. I'm only responsible for helping you escape, and the faster the process, the better. We can't afford to waste any time. Banner, sitting in the passenger seat, felt a bit unwell. Experiencing Su Xing's reckless driving from a first-person perspective, Banner's heart pounded. On the crowded highway, Su Xing always managed to weave through the cars ahead at an incredible angle. Banner had reason to believe that in this situation, he might get into a car accident and go berserk before even reaching Mr. Blue's place. Looking at Su Xing, who was controlling the steering wheel with one hand, constantly replying on his phone with the other, and not even lifting his head, Banner felt a little regretful. If he had known this, he would have left by himself last night. Listening to Su Xing's reply, Banner was a bit confused. Then why didn't we leave yesterday? Overtaking cars with one hand, Su Xing lowered his head again. Didn't I tell you? I was off work yesterday. We have to make up for lost time, don't we? Banner in the passenger seat widened his eyes. No wonder you clocked in right on time and weren't worried about the mission at all. So this is how you make up for lost time. Looking at the constantly changing vehicles outside the window, Banner really wanted to jump out and escape. I'm not playing anymore. I'll just run there myself. Su Xing, busy with his phone, didn't have time to care what Banner was thinking. At this moment, he was busy sending the dozens of complaint messages that Betty's boyfriend had sent overnight to the military. Su Xing didn't lie to Banner about not having time to waste. The military, having already received his report, had begun to act. Under General Ross's urging, even if the military didn't want to move, their organizational efforts were unprecedentedly high. Not to mention, General Ross had been waiting for this moment for days. After submitting, Su Xing looked up. Everything was currently proceeding as he had planned. Banner would go to Mr. Blue's place under his guidance, and then the military would arrive after his notification. He would then extricate himself before the experiment began, leave Banner's side, pretend he had just arrived, and rendezvous with the military. Everything was normal. Now he just needed to complete the final preparations for this plan. He needed to make Banner believe that Betty's boyfriend had leaked the information, so Banner wouldn't hold a grudge against him. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., his shadow would more or less be behind major events in the future. Strictly speaking, someone like Hulk was half a colleague of his. They would see each other often in the future, and it wouldn't be good if they all formed grudges like Tony. And although the car he was driving looked old, it was only its appearance that was old. Under the extreme modifications by S.H.I.E.L.D. researchers, the entire car had undergone a qualitative change. It was precisely with this car that Su Xing dared to race against the military at this time. No choice. General Ross only needed to wait at Mr. Blue's place. But Su Xing had much more to consider. Putting down his phone, Su Xing looked up and began to accelerate fully. Banner, beside him, saw Su Xing finally lift his head and felt a slight relaxation inside. Just as he was about to catch his breath, the immediate pushback force pressed Banner firmly into the passenger seat. Under Su Xing's full acceleration, the speed of the entire car was once again enhanced. It moved among the vehicles like a smooth snake, gliding forward very quickly through every gap. Turning his head with difficulty, Banner felt completely numb. Damn it! Why are you looking at the road when you're driving? Who says you have to look at the road when you drive? You might as well just keep fiddling with your phone. Meanwhile, on the other side, General Ross had mobilized all personnel and was already on his way. Sitting in a helicopter, General Ross picked up the walkie-talkie and began to inquire with the intelligence department. Any discoveries? No, General. General Ross picked up the walkie-talkie and couldn't help but curse. A bunch of idiots. You can't find any useful information. If S.H.I.E.L.D. hadn't provided intelligence, with you lot, I think you'd never find Hulk. In the intelligence department, the scolded staff were sweating profusely. All available satellites had been activated, but there was still no information about Banner on the detectable routes. Just as the intelligence department staff were sweating anxiously, several messages came through. Banner is at my house. Please come quickly to apprehend him. Followed by a location message. Then several more messages came, stating, Banner has left. Destination unknown. The intelligence department staff felt as if they had received a great pardon and quickly reported these messages to General Ross on the other end. On the other end of the walkie-talkie, listening to the messages from the intelligence department, General Ross excitedly slammed his seat. Excellent. Where did the message come from? Listening to the location information provided by the intelligence department, General Ross's face darkened. As early as Banner became Hulk, General Ross had already cut off any contact between his daughter, Betty, and Banner. Now, not only had Banner returned to his territory, but he even dared to go find his daughter. And Betty didn't report it. Send someone to that location and get more detailed information from the person who reported it. After assigning the task, General Ross tiredly pinched his nose. The excitement of knowing Hulk's location had somewhat diminished under the impact of his family. And just then, a trusted aide handed General Ross the phone. General, a S.H.I.E.L.D. consultant is calling. General Ross quickly took the phone. Is there new information about Hulk? Su, it's me. And very close to Mr. Blue's destination, Su Xing slowed down the car. Although the speed was still fast, Banner, having adapted to the earlier high-speed dash on the highway, finally caught his breath. Gripping the steering wheel, Su Xing looked at the call he had made, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. Excellent. According to his calculations, at his current speed, he could definitely reach the destination before General Ross arrived. So now, only one thing needed to be done. Make Banner believe that Betty's boyfriend had leaked the information. Soon, Banner, sensing something was wrong, began to ask, Why did you slow down? Su Xing put on a professional demeanor and recited the excuse he had prepared long ago. Don't rush. We need to confirm if the military has made any moves. The call connected. General Ross's voice came through the phone. Su, it's me. Hearing that voice again, Banner was still a little uncomfortable, but after a night of waiting, Banner could somewhat understand General Ross's feelings. With Su Xing's way of doing things, if you scold him, you're afraid he'll just give up and stop working. If you don't scold him, you still want to. In the end, he could only use a somewhat neutral way to sarcastically ask him, "Are you at work?" And he shamelessly admitted it directly. It was precisely because of this that, to some extent, Banner and General Ross, who were enemies, found a common topic that shouldn't have existed due to Su Xing's appearance. And with a common topic, Banner could confirm that it was indeed General Ross on the other end of the line. Seeing that Banner could hear General Ross's voice, Su Xing was secretly pleased. Excellent. Since Banner was willing to listen actively, this information could be conveyed to Banner more easily. Of course, it didn't matter if Banner didn't want to listen. On the highway he had carefully selected, coupled with his reckless speed, even if Banner didn't want to listen, he had nowhere else to go. Adjusting his state, Su Xing asked, "General, I have currently lost contact with Banner. Is there anything you can provide from your end?" On the helicopter, hearing Su Xing's inquiry, General Ross felt a bit strange. He pondered internally. Although S.H.I.E.L.D had just provided Hulk's final destination, allowing General Ross to prepare. However, in this matter, General Ross was still wary of S.H.I.E.L.D, which Su Xing represented. Facing Su Xing's request for information, General Ross paused, then retorted, "Don't you have more information on your end?" Listening to General Ross's retort, Su Xing was not flustered at all. This situation was already within his expectations, so he calmly said, "No, General. The purpose of this call is to synchronize our progress and prevent what happened last time from recurring. So, if you have the latest intelligence, please trust my sincerity. We can help each other. After all, isn't our goal to capture Hulk? What do you say, General?" On the helicopter, feeling the wind sweeping across his face, General Ross's internal guard slowly dropped. Although Su Xing was primarily responsible for what happened in Brazil last time, leading to the military's planned failure. But the military also did not provide any information to Su Xing. The ultimate result of this behavior was that General Ross was completely unable to investigate Su Xing's responsibility afterward, ultimately suffering a silent loss. After much thought, General Ross still told Su Xing the latest news. If anything went wrong with this mission again, S.H.I.E.L.D could at least bear some of the responsibility. "We just received intelligence that Hulk's safe form, Banner, left an apartment not long ago." Listening from the passenger seat, Banner's attention was instantly drawn. What? When did his information leak? That shouldn't be right. Wasn't he following Su Xing the whole time? Noticing Banner's questioning gaze, Su Xing was very satisfied. This reaction was exactly right. Su Xing continued to inquire. "Sorry, General, the information provided isn't detailed enough. Where exactly is this apartment?" General Ross on the other end of the line hesitated for a moment, then still sent the detailed address to Su Xing. Looking at the address information sent over, Banner couldn't help but curse inwardly. Fuck, it was indeed Betty's apartment. So who would report that he had left? Facing the option of only two people, Banner helplessly closed his eyes. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Su Xing prepared to hang up the phone. And it was at this moment that General Ross added, "Listen, Su, you know the reason. I don't want you to disturb Betty." The information was provided by her current boyfriend. Hearing General Ross's request, Su Xing secretly raised an eyebrow. It seemed General Ross wasn't satisfied with any of his son-in-laws. It made sense. Red Hulk General Ross, She-Hulk Betty, they were all members of the Hulk family. It would be really hard for a normal person to integrate. After his internal complaints, Su Xing bid General Ross an official farewell. Seeing Su Xing hang up the phone, Banner couldn't help but curse out loud. Fuck, he's one way in front of people and another way behind their backs. Seeing Banner's reaction, Su Xing suppressed the urge to let his mouth curl upwards. No choice, you can't guess what everyone is like behind their backs. Banner turned his gaze to outside the car window. I can't imagine Betty being with someone like that. Su Xing released his right hand from the steering wheel and reached out to embrace Banner again. You can't control everything. Su Xing turned his head and met Banner's gaze. But believe me, as fellow travelers on this short journey, I will always, always, never betray you. I am your most trustworthy brother. Watching Su Xing drive with one hand, speeding on the highway, not even looking at the road, and casually overtaking other cars, Banner gave Su Xing a trusting smile in response to his expectant gaze. Who cares if he's talking nonsense? Just go along with what he says. I'm already smiling for you. Please, just turn your head and look at the road. Meanwhile, at Betty's home, Betty's current boyfriend was cooking in the kitchen, undergoing investigation by the military. You just said you already reported it to us last night. How are you sure? Hearing the investigator's question, the man put down his knife and pulled out his phone from his pocket. I have a record, you can take a look. He opened his phone, and a message popped up. Do as follows. Don't expose my existence. Don't let yourself face the worst outcome. The military can't protect you. You can try if you don't believe me. The man felt a surge of fear and instinctively wanted to get closer to the investigator. Just as the man was about to move his feet, he suddenly felt a chill on his neck. The man, feeling strange, looked back and was horrified to find a kitchen knife already in front of him. Following the handle of the knife, which had been placed properly, had somehow slipped down and just grazed his neck. The investigator looked up, quickly got up, and put the knife back. Watch out for safety. After putting the knife back, the investigator took the phone from the man's hand. He looked at the blank record, then returned it to the man with a strange expression. Where's the record? Clutching his neck, which now had a bleeding line, the man said with a trembling voice. Perhaps I remembered it wrong. Okay, next question. How did Banner leave? He found an old car by the roadside and drove away himself. By the roadside, only one street away from the address provided by Mr. Blue. Su Xing closed the surveillance footage of Betty's house on his wrist. He turned to look at Banner. It's just around the corner ahead. You know the military has already arrived? I can't follow you anymore. Banner nodded in understanding. It was still early. The sun still hung in the sky, making it a clear blue. In the peaceful New York City. Inside an inconspicuous old, dilapidated car, Banner, wearing a baseball cap, sat in the passenger seat, while Su Xing was dressed in a gray trench coat. In front of the bustling museum, Su Xing immediately spotted Mr. Blue in the crowd. This wasn't because Su Xing's agent skills were particularly refined, allowing him to accurately guess a person's identity. Rather, Mr. Blue, whom Banner wanted to seek help from to remove the Hulk from his body, had an overly obvious appearance and demeanor. That thin, short figure, with a large head, and the aura of an evil genius villain whose intelligence was clearly high, was truly conspicuous in the crowd. Watching Mr. Blue, standing at the museum entrance, squinting his small eyes and glancing around, Su Xing, sitting in the car, tapped his fingers, observing his every move. He pondered information about this archenemy of the Hulk, the intellectual supervillain known as the Leader. The Leader is also known as the Head. Due to contact with Banner, he eventually mutated from gamma radiation as well. His already intelligent brain, after mutation, had its intelligence directly boosted by 1,000 times. Aside from his abnormally strong intelligence, the Leader also possessed mind control abilities similar to Dr. X, though a weakened version. Overall, he was the type who wasn't good at direct combat, but liked to secretly cause big trouble from behind. Su Xing tapped the steering wheel, a bold idea forming in his mind. Should he take him out now, while he hadn't fully developed? He didn't want him to cause trouble from behind later. Thank you for all your help along the way, Su. Banner, sitting next to him, interrupted Su Xing's thoughts. Banner's right hand was on the car door, and after much hesitation, he still thanked Su Xing. Hearing Banner's thanks, Su Xing shifted his gaze from the Leader to Banner in the passenger seat. Looking at Su Xing's annoying smile, Banner suddenly regretted it. This lunatic was already thick-skinned. He could take all his sarcasm without shame, let alone actively praising him. Hearing Banner's thanks, Su Xing, contrary to his usual self, raised an eyebrow, not being mischievous this time, but seriously told Banner, "Time is tight, Banner. Let's talk about the thanks in detail when we meet again later." Banner was slightly surprised internally, but then smiled. Without saying more, he pulled down his hat brim and walked towards the Leader. This guy? Although his thought process was quite abstract, he actually delivered him to his destination. And all along the way, just as he said, he didn't betray him at all. A sincere thank you was indeed due. Su Xing, sitting in the car, finished contacting General Ross, confirmed his location, then hung up the phone and drove away from the scene. Driving, Su Xing couldn't help but chuckle when he thought of Banner's thanks just now. See, he sold him out, and he still had to thank him. After hiding the car, Su Xing pondered his next move. The plan was now fully prepared. All that was left was to follow the plot and let things develop naturally. Banner, with the leader's help, successfully suppressed the Hulk within him. But it was only suppressed. Although the leader was smart, it didn't mean he was omnipotent. As the embodiment of God's wrath, the Hulk could not be truly suppressed. If Su Xing remembered correctly, the Hulk in the comics always survived various destructive major events. And it was always in situations where heroes were almost completely wiped out, with only the Hulk remaining. Next, General Ross would make his appearance. As the Hulk's biggest early enemy, having pursued the Hulk all the way, General Ross eventually, in the leader's laboratory, used an anesthetic to capture Banner, who had briefly suppressed the Hulk, and took him back. Next, one of General Ross's subordinates, Bronsky, would force the leader to help him gain the Hulk's power. With the leader's help, Bronsky, after being injected, eventually transformed into the Abomination with the help of the Hulk's blood. And Mr. Blue would also be affected by the Hulk's power in this incident, transforming into the true leader. From then on, the Abomination and the leader, two villains, one brawn and one brain, became the Hulk's archenemies. Although he had forgotten many details, Su Xing still clearly remembered the end of the story. Watching the Abomination wreak havoc in the city, Banner believed that, from a certain perspective, the Hulk was still useful. Finally, he transformed into the Hulk and defeated the Abomination. Then he escaped to somewhere. And the Hulk's next appearance would be in Avengers 1, during Loki's invasion. Walking towards the fighter jet he had hidden earlier, Su Xing began to drive towards the rear of General Ross, who was about to arrive. Of the above plot, only the part where the Hulk defeats the Abomination was directly related to him. What did this mean for him? It meant he could continue to slack off. When the Abomination emerged, the Hulk would handle it. This meant the task of saving civilians could be skipped. And General Ross could only watch as the warmed-up Hulk left right under his nose, meaning the Hulk also successfully escaped. This was simply killing two birds with one stone. He could openly slack off. Then, he could extract some blood from the Abomination, which would count as fulfilling his obligation to Fury. What was this called? This was called one fish 3 ways, 3 sighs in one song, and spitting out 3 times for one meal. Driving the fighter jet, Su Xing happily flew towards the rear. Ever since Fury, that motherfucker, started having the idea of forming the Avengers, he hadn't had a moment's peace. He had just pulled Tony out of the terrorists' den, and before he could rest for a bit, he seamlessly received a new mission to capture the Hulk. To be fair, in these 2 missions, he hadn't slacked off at all. Was this called working? No, this was called earning his rightful pay. And the surplus value he produced was taken by Fury. Overall, this deal was unreasonable. Besides, with the meager salary S.H.I.E.L.D. paid, why should he risk his life? Just showing his S.H.I.E.L.D. identity when something happened was enough to justify that salary. He couldn't risk his life. How else would he make money if he risked his life? Watching General Ross getting closer, Su Xing slowly reduced his speed. He would just follow General Ross and comfortably finish the rest of the mission. The thought of slacking off next made Su Xing feel a burst of exhilaration. Upon reaching the designated location, Su Xing took out his phone and contacted the military. "Hello, General Ross. Do you have the latest progress on the Hulk? I just arrived at the scene and am heading your way now to personally coordinate with you in capturing the Hulk." Inside the city, Banner followed the leader into the laboratory. "Give me the research data." Banner pulled out a USB drive from his pocket and handed it to the leader. As he inserted it into the computer, a surge of uncontrollable fervor welled up on the leader's face. "Yes, this is it. With this, I can definitely answer this question." Watching the leader fall into a kind of madness, Banner, standing nearby, felt a bit numb. Fuck. Ever since he became the Hulk, Why did everyone he met seem so abnormal? General Ross, obsessed with obtaining data from him to research super soldiers, was one. Su Xing, who had just said goodbye to him, was even more so. He was a heavyweight. This neurotic you-know-who in front of him had to be another. Already numb, Banner didn't react to the leader's frenzy but politely asked a question. I didn't get a chance to ask earlier. What should I call you? The leader stared at the computer screen, not even turning his head. When I win the Nobel Prize and my name echoes throughout the scientific world, you will know my name. After speaking, the leader directly pulled out the USB drive. The analysis is complete. I'm going to prepare the antidote to suppress the monster inside you right now. Watching the leader walk towards the laboratory without even glancing at him, Banner numbly followed. This was even worse than that S.H.I.E.L.D. consultant. At least he told him his name. Following behind the leader, Banner suddenly felt confused about this world. The Hulk was inside him. But why did he feel like he was the most normal one among these people? At the same time, inside the city, General Ross was holding a walkie-talkie, assigning tasks. Send men to continue manning the blockade, strictly checking anyone who wants to leave. And send more men to expand the blockade area, maintaining contact throughout. Su Xing, who had already met up with General Ross, sighed with emotion beside him. TSK, TSK, TSK. Now this was a grand gesture. After getting the location he provided, he directly sent the army to seal off the entire area. If the leader and Banner hadn't been so intelligent, it would have been a question whether they could have evaded the search and successfully conducted the experiment. As expected of General Ross, who had pursued the Hulk for many years. His handling was truly professional. General Ross, having arranged the tasks, looked at Su Xing. Is your intel accurate, Su? Su Xing reined in his slacking posture and said to General Ross, I'm sure, General. Banner met with someone who calls himself Mr. Blue, preparing to get rid of the Hulk inside him. The information was obtained from Banner's computer. It's absolutely reliable. Hearing Su Xing's confident tone, General Ross became agitated. General Ross had pursued the Hulk for many years precisely to capture him, conduct related research, and thus create his own super squad. If the Hulk truly disappeared, he would gain nothing. It was like a superposition of winning, but also completely failing. Waiting for the result, General Ross looked at Su Xing in front of him, feeling a hint of envy. He had pursued the Hulk for many years, always troubled by a lack of information. If he could also have S.H.I.E.L.D's ability to gather intelligence, the Hulk might have been captured by him long ago. He really didn't know how S.H.I.E.L.D. managed to obtain such crucial information. Could it be a huge gap in technology? Su Xing, having finished his answer, was full of sincerity. The information was definitely authentic. He had personally escorted them to the location. He had personally watched Banner and the leader leave, so it couldn't be fake. While waiting, the anxious General Ross asked, Is there no more information? Su Xing shook his head. He truly didn't know where the leader's laboratory was. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't tell General Ross. After all, he still wanted to slack off a bit longer. If he told General Ross, wouldn't that just speed up the plot? Anyway, the experiment between the Hulk and the leader wouldn't be completed anytime soon, so they definitely wouldn't escape. General Ross sighed helplessly. He could only hold his walkie-talkie and make preparations. Tell Bronsky to get ready, always prepared for action. After calling, General Ross forced himself to calm down. The more crucial the moment, the less he could panic. He had pursued the Hulk for so many years and made thorough preparations. There had already been one mistake in Brazil. He absolutely could not make a mistake at this time. Gradually calming down, General Ross once again calmly thought about the current situation. The wariness towards Su Xing returned to his mind. He had never forgotten why that operation in Brazil failed. Since he was close to finding the Hulk, he would absolutely not let Su Xing interfere again. After calling, General Ross once again turned his gaze to Su Xing. Su, the entire area is under our control. Your role alone is limited, so just stay here with me and wait for news. As a soldier, General Ross admitted that this was the gentlest command he could utter. As long as he could keep Su Xing here, he wouldn't be able to obtain news about Banner on his own without him knowing. Su Xing's gaze flickered to the side, as if deep in thought, then finally nodded. I agree with your opinion. Hearing Su Xing's answer, a glint appeared in the depths of General Ross's eyes. Very good. He had him under control here. Staring into General Ross's eyes, a glint also appeared in Su Xing's eyes. Very good. He could openly slack off now. The agreement was reached. Both sides were satisfied. After a pause, General Ross asked jokingly, "By the way, when do you get off work?" Su Xing looked at General Ross, revealing a trustworthy smile. "Please rest assured, General. I will absolutely not let getting off work delay this operation. Likewise, I will also absolutely not let this operation delay my getting off work." Listening to Su Xing's answer, a smile also appeared on General Ross's face. Haha, then I can rest easy. A trusted aide, about to report information, froze on the spot at this sight. What was going on? General Ross, who had ordered him to kill Su Xing just a few days ago, was now smiling at Su Xing. He must have approached in the wrong way. Let me try a different angle. In the laboratory, the prepared leader had secured Banner to the equipment. Looking at the leather restraints on his wrists, Banner said to the leader, self-deprecatingly, "These won't control me if I lose control." The leader didn't stop what he was doing. "Don't worry, according to my calculations, you won't lose control. This experiment will be absolutely foolproof." Banner, with his limbs bound, suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. When he first became the Hulk, it was also in a laboratory. Betty stood in front of the glass enclosure, looking at him worriedly. He, in turn, gave Betty a reassuring look, and even though he knew Betty couldn't hear him, he still opened his mouth to comfort her. This time it's absolutely foolproof. It was as if to reassure Betty, and also as if to give himself courage. Thinking of this, Banner, who had closed his eyes, opened them again and looked at the leader, who was about to begin. "Don't say that phrase, say something else." Listening to Banner's inexplicable request, the leader indifferently started the experiment. Watching the antidote slowly inject, the leader stared into Banner's eyes and said in a low voice, "A wonderful change will occur within you." It was as if to reassure Banner, and also as if to give himself courage. In the peaceful city of New York, everything looked serene. Beneath the quiet and harmonious buildings, a child playing outside was pestering his parents to buy him an ice cream. The helpless father could only agree to the child's request. "We said we wouldn't buy him ice cream this time." Facing his wife's reproach, the father shrugged, smiled, and hugged his wife. "Did I say that? I don't remember. Besides, if we bought it, we bought it. Who cares if today is a good day?" Meanwhile, in a laboratory less than a block away, a startling scene was unfolding. Banner was howling in pain on the bed. As the serum was injected, Banner's body began to undergo drastic changes. Green veins appeared on Banner's neck. Thick veins coiled around Banner's body like vines. His originally thin wrists slowly thickened, and the restraints on Banner's body began to burst. The hoarse shouts gradually turned into a beast-like roar. Hulk's angry green filled his pupils. The entire scene was terrifying. Hulk was like a demon from hell, struggling to tear Banner open and descend upon the world. Leader watched the changes happening to Banner's body, unconsciously backing away. His whole body trembled violently, unable to tell if it was fear or excitement. This is simply the art of God. Perhaps the serum had taken effect. Hulk's appearance this time was not as smooth as before. The transformation process this time was like struggling to climb out of a quagmire. At this moment, Banner felt as if every part of his body was being torn apart, in such pain that he was almost losing consciousness. The excited leader pulled his attention back from the scene before him. He scrambled to the serum, pulled the bolt, and the already prepared serum was injected into Banner's body. Hulk, who had almost fully manifested, opened his mouth to roar. But the sound had not yet escaped before it vanished. As the serum was injected, Hulk rapidly disappeared, ultimately leaving only the exhausted Banner collapsed on the laboratory table. Looking at the destruction left by Hulk's transformation, Leader could no longer contain his excitement. This is it. As long as this mystery is unraveled, who needs the Nobel Prize? Awards named after me will completely become the goal for all scientists to strive for. At the same time, General Ross listened to his confidant's report, his smile fading as he became serious. The intelligence department finally did something useful. Assemble the troops. Begin preparations for the operation. Su Xing, standing by, looked at General Ross's focused expression and couldn't help but sigh. Who said Hulk wouldn't have fans even if he joined the Avengers? Isn't there a devoted fan who has been following Hulk even before he became famous? As soon as he heard about Hulk, his entire aura changed. Have Bronsky come to see me. After giving instructions to his confidant, General Ross looked at Su Xing again. His attitude towards Su Xing also began to change slightly. Now that Hulk's location was confirmed, the entire matter was completely under his control. S.H.I.E.L.D. should step aside. Don't worry, advisor. You just stay on the plane. I will handle the rest of the operation. To General Ross's surprise. Upon hearing these words, which were clearly meant to exclude him, Su Xing not only showed no dissatisfaction, but was quite pleased with the arrangement. That would be even better. I'll wait here for you to bring Hulk. Seeing Su Xing make no move, General Ross's disdain for Su Xing deepened a few more points. After a faint, very well, he turned and left. Facing the obvious contempt, Su Xing showed no reaction. The mission was complete, and General Ross's attitude towards him was already within Su Xing's expectations. Staying on the plane was fine. It saved him from having to pretend to fight. Leaning back in his seat, Su Xing somewhat glumly rubbed the backrest. What kind of broken chair was this? It didn't even have a cushion. It wasn't suitable for slacking off at all. Upon reaching the ground, General Ross took the experimental data handed to him by his confidant, glanced at it, and then held it in his hand. A line of well-equipped Special Forces soldiers stood uniformly in front of General Ross. General Ross scanned them one by one, finally resting his gaze on the captain of the squad. I assume you've seen the experimental data yourself, haven't you? Bronsky's face was hidden beneath his helmet, and he spoke in a muffled voice. Yes. General Ross slowly walked up to Bronsky, leaned close to his ear, and said to Bronsky, I called you here to capture this monster, Hulk. The serum injected into you once created a hero like Captain. I don't want this serum to be disgraced on you. Bring Hulk back to me. Don't embarrass me like last time. Bronsky unconsciously tightened his grip on his gun. With his current strength, firearms were like toys. They would shatter if he squeezed them hard. But in front of General Ross, he could only control his strength, enduring and not applying force. After speaking, General Ross returned to his position. Remember, no one will interfere with you this time. Bring Hulk back to me with anesthetics. I don't want this matter to get out of hand. The squad, led by Bronsky, all headed to the laboratory where Banner and Leader were located, at General Ross's signal. In the laboratory, Banner slowly opened his eyes with difficulty. Enduring the pain throughout his body, Banner slowly sat up. Leader, who had been pacing back and forth, saw Banner awaken and immediately walked forward, excitedly saying, How do you feel? That monster will never appear in the world again. Feeling the needle-like soreness in his limbs, Banner felt as if he had been reborn. Hulk was finally gone. Had he finally become a normal person again? Sitting on the laboratory table, Banner felt a sense of relief, covering his face with his hands and freely expressing his emotions. Fuck. Feeling his change, Banner almost cried. How many years had it been? Forced to abandon the woman he deeply loved, living like a monster in isolation. Every day, he had to nervously hide from General Ross, who was once his father-in-law. And he couldn't even get angry. All because of this demon inside him. Lowering his hands, Banner's face showed a genuine smile. He had finally gotten rid of this damned curse. Beside him, Leader handed Banner a set of clothes and paced back and forth next to Banner. Quick, quick, quick. Put on your clothes. You must witness this moment. The relieved Banner looked at the overly happy Leader in front of him and said nothing for a moment. No matter what, Hulk had been eliminated from his body. What else could happen? Could it be like Hydra in the myths, where if you cut off one head, two more grow? On the helicopter, Su Xing looked at General Ross, who was giving commands, and asked, Has the operation started? Hearing Su Xing's question, General Ross, who was intently monitoring the mission progress, replied casually, It has already begun, consultant. Listening to General Ross's reply, Su Xing's heart unconsciously filled with anticipation. In a little while, Hulk's nemesis, Abomination, would make his appearance. With Abomination's emergence, another villain who had been tainted by Hulk's blood, Leader, would also appear. These two were frequent guests in Hulk's personal story. Su Xing, rubbing his hands like a fly, suddenly understood why various forces desired Hulk's blood. No wonder. This stuff was similar to a symbiote. Venom birthed carnage, and carnage extended further down the line. Anyone closely related to Hulk would eventually be exposed to the so-called gamma rays and become a member of the Hulk family. Beside him, General Ross, seeing that the team led by Bronsky was approaching the mission location, couldn't help but smile, despite his usual stern demeanor. General Ross was very confident in this operation. Bronsky was a professional he had seconded from multiple sources. Cold in nature, without fear. He was perfect for the mission to capture Hulk. His professional capabilities were absolutely beyond question. Not to mention that Bronsky had already been injected with a serum. His physical capabilities were even greater than before. General Ross glanced at Su Xing, who was full of anticipation beside him, feeling a surge of resentment. If it hadn't been for Su Xing's unknown methods in Brazil last time, which led Bronsky to misjudge and challenge Hulk to a one-on-one fight, resulting in him being slapped aside by Hulk, he wouldn't have injected Bronsky with the serum. This serum, of course, was not the same as the one General Ross claimed was for Captain America. That serum had long been lost. The serum injected into Bronsky was a super-weakened version. Not only was the improvement minimal, but the side effects were also extremely obvious. As the leader of the serum's development, General Ross knew better than anyone about its side effects. As time went on, the injected person's body would undergo extremely severe mutations. The entire person would become like an ugly, disgusting monster. But so what? As long as Hulk was captured, General Ross didn't care about anything else. Seeing the arrival information from Bronsky, General Ross's smile became even more pronounced. The time was even a few minutes faster than expected. Efficient, obedient, and follows orders. This was how a soldier should be. General Ross, feeling a bit smug, couldn't resist showing off. He mocked Su Xing, saying, "Don't worry, consultant. The personnel carrying out this mission are absolutely high quality. They definitely won't delay your getting off work." Su Xing, automatically filtering out the sarcasm in General Ross's words, his eyes lit up, and he replied, "I didn't expect the general to care about me so much. Are you perhaps developing a fondness for my talent and want to bring me into the military? If you want to win me over, I'm not saying I can't consider it." Su Xing's words were full of sincerity. If General Ross really wanted to win him over, he felt he could accept it. Su Xing had long been dissatisfied with the damn profession of S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Not only was the salary low, but the missions were also highly dangerous. The key was that he didn't get a single day off all year round. He was like a workhorse, toiling tirelessly, because the system didn't allow him to be absent. Look at General Ross's military. High benefits, good treatment. At S.H.I.E.L.D., even if he got off work on time, he still had to face Fury's questions. And the military? Su Xing was confident that with his level, he would at least be an officer in the military. As an officer, he could not only get off work on time, but also have normal weekends for vacation. Anyway, the system didn't explicitly say it was tied to S.H.I.E.L.D., so working in the military, why wouldn't that count as working? Listening to Su Xing's off-the-wall question, General Ross's sarcasm was directly stuck in his throat. You give him an inch, and he'll take a mile, won't you? As a soldier, the most important thing is to obey orders. Su Xing? Holy crap. Someone who could leave work halfway through fighting Hulk, and you talk about obeying orders to him? The time is right. You order him to lead the charge. He says no, he hasn't started work yet. What can you do about him? General Ross snorted coldly and turned his head back. The military would only hinder a talent like you. S.H.I.E.L.D. can better utilize your value. Hearing General Ross's refusal, Su Xing was a little disappointed. Sigh. He had already begun to fantasize about the good life of the U.S. military stationed in Korea. Sure enough, one cannot think life is too simple. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, Banner, dressed, followed behind Leader. Looking at the bottles and jars around him, Banner was a bit puzzled. What's in all of this? Leader, walking ahead, heard Banner's question, stopped, turned around, and looked at Banner. Allow me to show you. This will be a crucial moment for humanity to enter a new era. And this, it all stems from you, Banner. Banner, watching Leader's frenzy, suddenly froze. Me? Leader excitedly displayed the containers on the shelf. Just as you asked, Banner. What's in here is all your blood. Banner stood rooted to the spot. The excitement of escaping Hulk now vanished without a trace, and a bad premonition began to grow in his heart. The frenzied Leader didn't notice Banner's abnormality and continued his explanation. This blood, I extracted it when Hulk was still present. After getting the first sample, I replicated it many times. With these things Before Leader could finish, Banner repeatedly interrupted him. Wait. This blood cannot be kept. You must destroy it. Looking at Leader's puzzled expression, Banner endured the pain, raised his arm, and slowly moved his feet. Believe me, this blood is cursed. If it is used for other purposes, such as military use, it will bring great harm to the world. Leader's eyes gradually lost their fanaticism and became cold. I can't believe I'm hearing the word cursed from a doctor's mouth. This will overturn the world. And I don't care how the world is overturned. Banner, enduring the pain, still wanted to say something more. A tranquilizer dart shattered the glass and hit Banner's neck before either of them could react. Banner instantly fell to the ground. In the building opposite the laboratory, Bronski, who had already aimed at Banner's temple, saw Banner suddenly shot and fall in his sight, and immediately lost control of his temper. Fuck! He punched the windowsill. The hard windowsill was directly shattered by this punch. He wasn't here to capture Hulk. Bronski, having been injected with the serum, didn't care about any mission. He just wanted to fight Hulk. And this tranquilizer dart completely shattered his plan. Gritting his teeth, Bronski clutched the already shattered windowsill. Captain, target neutralized. Due to the side effects of the serum, Bronski's back unnaturally curved, making him resemble a humanoid lizard clinging to the rooftop. Bronski breathed heavily in anger, but ultimately suppressed the urge to immediately tear apart his subordinate. After all, he was still in the military. Bronski knew that if any problems arose at this moment, General Ross would definitely not let him off. He wasn't afraid of General Ross's accountability. It was just that if that happened, he certainly wouldn't be able to easily get close to Hulk. On the rooftop, the agent who had reported the information covered his earpiece, wondering why there was no sound from the walkie-talkie. So he reported again. Captain, target neutralized. Listening to the urging in his earpiece, Bronski straightened himself and said in a low voice, Received, prepare to breach. At Bronski's command, the few agents at the laboratory door immediately kicked it open, entering the laboratory quickly and efficiently in a tight formation. And inside the laboratory, the leader, who had not yet mutated, showed no signs of shock at this sudden change. He had known early on that the military was pursuing Banner, and his mind was already prepared. Facing the sudden breach by the special agents, the leader directly knelt on the ground, raising his hands, and was then immediately held at gunpoint by the special agents. Following closely, Bronski, with a slight stoop, also entered the laboratory, holding his gun. Due to their combat postures, the agents did not notice Bronski's abnormality. Looking at Banner lying on the ground, Bronski waved his hand, signaling the agents to search the interior of the laboratory, while he himself remained in place. The controlled leader cooperated with the agents and walked further inside. At this moment, only Bronski and Banner remained in the entire space. Looking at Banner, who was face down and had fallen flat on his face, Bronski was furious. He went up, grabbed Banner by his collar, and pulled him up. 2 harsh slaps landed squarely on Banner's face. Wake up! Aren't you very angry? Come out! Banner, who had just been injected with the serum, remained motionless, so Bronski could only furiously smash him in the abdomen with a rifle butt. Banner, in his coma, painfully arched his body, but Hulk still didn't appear. Hearing footsteps approaching the laboratory door, Bronski had to stop his actions and stood up unwillingly. It was at this moment that the labels on the laboratory bottles caught his attention and connecting it with the leader who had just been kneeling on the ground. A crazy plan formed in his mind. High in the sky, the helicopter carrying Su Xing and General Ross landed on the rooftop adjacent to the laboratory. The target has been controlled, and the follow-up scene is being cleared. General Ross, who had been waiting for a long time, replied, "Bring Banner over." Su Xing, who was slacking off nearby, heard General Ross's conversation and his eyes lit up. Good, good, good. It's finally about to start. It wasn't in vain that he waited so long. Under the actions of the well-trained military personnel, Banner, who was lying on the bed, was quickly pushed into the helicopter. After several thick adrenaline shots, the unconscious Banner slowly woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw General Ross staring intently at him. A self-deprecating bitter smile appeared on Banner's lips. After years of fleeing, he had come full circle and was back in General Ross's hands. An uncontrolled escape, and a controlled return. How could this not be a kind of fate? Facing General Ross again, Banner no longer felt the urgency he had before. Believing that he had now eliminated Hulk, Banner's heart became very peaceful. The awakened Banner met General Ross's gaze and said softly, "I have eliminated that monster within me. It's too late to catch me now." Hearing Banner's words, General Ross, who was already prepared, still felt a tightening in his heart. Looking at Banner's eyes, which showed no trace of peace, General Ross said, "Everything will be discussed once the test data is out." After speaking, General Ross looked towards Su Xing, who was beside him. Now that Banner was in his hands, General Ross no longer bothered to hide his displeasure towards Su Xing. Facing the worst-case scenario that the experiment was over and Hulk might be eliminated, General Ross's words to Su Xing carried direct sarcasm. Meeting an old friend of many years again in such a setting is really not a good time. Don't you agree, consultant? If Su Xing hadn't interrupted the previous plan, Hulk might have been captured in the last Brazil operation. How else would things have developed to this point? Listening to General Ross's veiled accusations, Su Xing shrugged. The last operation was just a misunderstanding. Wasn't this person finally caught? Banner, lying on the bed, turned his head slightly and saw that handsome face again. Looking at Su Xing's familiar, annoying, and unreliable manner of speaking, Banner was greatly shocked internally. How could he make a real event seem so much like a scam? Although Su Xing had been helping him all along, he also had a certain degree of trust in Su Xing. But who would have thought that he actually had connections with General Ross? He only heard General Ross angrily question Su Xing. If you hadn't gotten off work, perhaps things would have taken a turn for the better. Banner closed his eyes. He fell into deep doubt from the bottom of his heart. Could it be that he had been in a hallucination ever since the day he met Su Xing? All the experiences along the way were fake. He hadn't come to New York, and he hadn't injected the serum to eliminate Hulk. Otherwise, how could he be seeing such a bizarre scene? It wasn't that Banner was overly suspicious. It was mainly that Su Xing's behavior was too unprofessional. No, buddy. You're collaborating with someone of General Ross's stature, and you're telling me that your only means of communication is a broken phone. No kidding. Banner felt that randomly snatching a phone off the street would be better than the one he used to communicate. If you really have no funds, why don't you just snatch one from a homeless person? I really wouldn't mind. A homeless person's phone might even be better than his. Banner, lying on the bed, glanced at the earpiece General Ross used for communication, then closed his eyes again. Thinking that Su Xing used such a broken phone to communicate with General Ross, Banner's excellent imagination as a scientist conjured up a very comical scene in his mind. In front of General Ross, there was a pile of sophisticated machines. His weathered hand held the microphone, and he said to Su Xing, "Do you have detailed information about Hulk?" Su Xing tilted his head, holding the phone with his shoulder, and licked the honey mustard that had accidentally gotten on his hand from eating a hot dog. While picking a lock, he replied absent-mindedly, "I've done my best, General. I'll let you know as soon as there's any news." Hanging up the phone, General Ross's staff recorded the conversation information, and Su Xing, with a click, hung up the phone. Time to get off work. Banner's lips twitched, and he felt like laughing.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.